And take a moment to feel the contact of your footprints on the floor, the contact of the back of your pelvis on the floor. And then start to ever so easily rock right. Yes, was someone speaking?
Yeah, there's
yes. Who's that?
It's Hilary. There's some distortion that I'm hearing from your
Okay,
end.
what I'm going to do is just I'm going to mute everyone. I'm going to mute everyone and see if that makes it better. Shall I try that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to mute everyone. If it doesn't work, then just wave at me if there's still distortion. So yes, tilting your knees to the right and to the left. Is that better sound-wise? Can someone give me a thumbs up if it is? Yeah, okay, thank you, Donna. Good. Good. Excellent, thank you. So yeah, just a couple more times, let the knees tilt to the right and to the left. And then settle your legs down, and it's up to you now. If you're comfortable with your legs long, you could lengthen your legs out on the floor. Otherwise, keep your knees bent and keep your feet standing on the floor, but you're going to try not to move the legs and pelvis. So you're going to take your arms up towards the ceiling and touch your palms together. So you're making this triangle shape with your arms, and you want to have your hands immediately over your chest. So you've got your hands stuck together, you've got your elbows straight, you've made a triangle with your arms, and you're going to start to rock this triangle to the right and to the left. So you're rocking across your upper back, and you're letting your head come along with your arms, but not your pelvis. Good. And just see how that feels. So a couple of things to think about. Try not to let your hands slide on each other. Try not to let your elbows bend. Obviously, try not to let your pelvis move. And if you're feeling really tight in the upper back, just do less. Make it a smaller movement. Maybe bring your arms down and let them rest for a moment. However is comfortable for you. I'm going to try unmuting us, but if it gets noisy again, I will do the same thing. Okay, so come back. We're going to repeat that movement with the arms. So when you feel that you've given your arms a little bit of a rest, bring them back into that triangle position. Does the sound seem okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, right. So bring your hands back into that triangle position and come back to that same rocking movement. So head and arms going in the same direction. Now, you could also try taking your head and arms in opposite directions. So you might have to, this might mean the movement becomes even smaller. And it might be helpful to have your eyes open so your eyes are also going in the same direction as your head. And see how that feels. And again, really make sure you're not pushing it. Make sure your elbows stay straight. And then finish just bringing the head and the arms back to going in the same direction a couple of times. Good. And then let your arms come to rest down on the floor. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Arms resting down now. And then just come back to letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. Very nice. Lovely. And just noticing how that feels in your body. And then pause in the center for a moment and cross your arms over your chest. So now come to letting your knees tilt and your elbows rock from side to side and your head roll from side to side. So everything is rolling towards the right and towards the left. And just see how this feels. So this is much more now, we're coming to this feeling of rolling across the back of the body, towards the right side, towards the left side. If you feel that you're worried about being balanced, you can always pause in the middle and change the cross of your arms. So heaven forbid we should make ourselves less balanced. If you feel as you're rocking onto your fingers, then just stick your fingers out, trail them out away from your body. And then from here, we're going to rock all the way over onto one side. And so it doesn't matter which side, rock onto one side and just settle yourself on your side. So your knees are bent. And if possible, you're resting your bottom arm under your head. And your top hand could be standing on the floor in front of you. So you're just trying to be comfortable on your side. And just have a breath or two to settle there. And then you're going to try that movement of lifting your bottom ribs away from the floor. So a few times, can you lift the bottom ribs off the floor and then place them back down again? And how does that feel? So a lot of what we're doing today is movements of the rib cage, and this is just trying to bring a bit more freedom into our ribs to support better, easier breathing. Help our lungs. Very nice. That looks lovely. And then can you, from your side, just as easily as possible, roll back onto your back. And when you come back onto your back, give yourself a hug again with your feet on the floor. So hug your arms around you and come to rocking again side to side with your arms crossed over your chest. How does it feel to roll from side to side across the back of your body? And so if we think about this rocking, it's giving our muscles a bit of a massage, but it's also, again, helping to soften the rib cage, make the whole of the rib cage a bit more malleable, a bit more movable. And in your own time, can you rock as easily as possible all the way onto your other side and come to settle on your other side? Obviously, people's backs this time, which is very nice. So settle on your other side, knees bent, good. Resting your head on a cushion or on your bottom arm. Good job, Rosie. Rosie, are you okay there? Yeah, all right. Yeah. Good, so rest, yes, so on your second side, having a couple of breaths, and then how does it feel lifting your bottom ribs away from the floor and placing them back down again? Try that a few times, that's nice. Lifting the bottom ribs, placing them back down. Lifting the bottom ribs, placing them back down. Good, very nice. And then from this side, again, roll back onto your back. And again, you could do a little bit more rocking. You could have your arms crossed over your chest. I want you to think about, from here, from being on your back, in a moment, we're going to roll onto your belly, and I would like you to try and roll from your back to your belly without sitting up. So you might feel that you want to lengthen your legs out at this point. You may well want to not have your arms crossed. Just think, how could you roll from your back onto your belly with as little effort as possible? And it might not be the smoothest movement, but can you do it without sitting up? And you might roll onto your side. I'm not saying you have to roll all the way from your back to your belly in one movement, but that's nice, good. And once you're on your belly, can you give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle? That's it. Give the pelvis a little bit of a wiggle. Have your arms wherever is comfortable. So you can wiggle your pelvis. If you like the one where you bend your knees and bring your feet up towards the ceiling, and then you tilt your feet from side to side, you can do that one. I know some of you, Tracy, are not so keen on that one. So if you don't like that one, don't do it. So I can see some very nice feet waving around. Great. And then bring your feet back down onto the floor. Settle yourselves there. And we're just going to do that very simple movement where you've got your arms either side of your head. So wherever your arms are, slide them forwards. So you've got your forehead resting on the floor and one arm either side of your head. And just that very simple movement where we exhale, we sink down into our elbows and we let our head lift off the floor. So Alice, I think you might want your arms a little bit further forwards if that's possible. I think just looking at you. Yeah, that's it. So if you imagine your arms are a bit like they are in child pose, either side of your head rather than sort of down by the sides of your shoulders. Good. As a few times, Sheila, it might be that your arms can go further forwards. I'm not sure. So that's it. So the arms are in a big circle around the head. You're encircling your head with your arms. And just a few times, how does it feel to lift your head? As you exhale, the chest will lift a little bit. And then you come back down again. And so I've said to a lot of you that I've read about how good it is for the health of our lungs to be lying on our belly. So I'm trying to squeeze it into everyone at some point. So from your belly, what we're going to do is then fold back into child pose and have a few breaths in child pose. And then we're going to start moving on hands and knees. Yeah, a couple of sighing breaths might be nice in child pose. Very good. So in child pose, a couple more breaths, and then we're going to come to hands and knees and do a bit of tail wagging, and then a bit of cat, and then a little bit of dog and a sequence. So that's it. When you're ready, come on to hands and knees. It's quite dark today, so I'm putting on another light, but if it's too dazzling, let me know. I had lots of debating with the Thursday evening class about light, and I didn't think I'd have it today. So coming to hands and knees. So hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips. And start off with a bit of wagging your tail. So this is a similar movement through the sides of our body to what we were doing when we were lying on our sides. So the ribs are lengthening on one side and shortening on the other. You can also do it by swinging your legs in little fishes, as you know. Just see how these movements feel. So my lower back always seems to benefit from these. And then whenever you're ready, you can start to add in some cat movements. So rounding your back and dipping your spine. So moving through flexion, which is rounding the back, and extension, which is when we dip the spine down. So when we round our back, the back of the body lengthening out. When we dip our spine down, the front of the body lengthening. And it's really up to you from here. You can either rock back into child pose and take the weight off your hands, or you can see how it feels to come into dog pose. So tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking your hips up and back into dog, and just seeing how it feels at this point on this rather grey Friday morning to come into a dog pose. And when you come into dog, having a few breaths there, all the things we can do, it looks very nice, all the things we can do to ease out tension. So bending one knee, bending the other. So in your own time, maybe a couple of dog poses, you can come back onto hands and knees, do a little bit of cat, do a bit of tail wagging, come back into child. Just let's think about what we can do to just get our bodies moving and release tension wherever we feel it. So in dog pose, it can be very nice to bend the knees a lot. it can be very nice to try taking the feet as wide apart as the mat. You've got very wide feet in your dog pose. Maybe bending the knees as well. Help let the shoulders release. At this point, sometimes tops need to come off so we don't disappear into them. I'll just come and have a little look at you. Good. Very nice. And I think it's just really important to, I mean, I always say it's always important not to push ourselves, but I think particularly at the moment it's important not to push ourselves because, yeah, we're sort of living through sort of unknown times. Why don't you, after the dog pose you're in, just settle back into child pose for a couple of breaths and just see how it feels to come and be a bit quiet, to have a couple of quiet breaths in child. If it doesn't feel good being in child pose, you can be on your forearms, you can be rocking forwards and back. Yes, you can be sitting and kneeling if you prefer, Rosie. So kneeling can be quite quiet as well for some of us. And then we're going to be coming back onto hands and knees, maybe stretching each leg out behind you. Have a little lengthen of each leg. And then let's see how it feels to come into plank pose. So if in stretching your leg out, you ended up off the back of your mat, come forwards a little bit. Organise yourself so your hands are clearly under your shoulders. And then lengthening each leg back in turn, seeing how plank pose is delightful, I'm sure. So really stretching the heels away from you, down through the bones of your arms. Having a couple of breaths.
Oh, God.
And then come out, give your hands a little shake out. What we're going to do now is just a little mini sequence of plank pose, dog pose, and then stepping forwards into lunge. But you can always come back onto hands and knees to come into lunge if that's better for you. So come back to plant on your hands on the floor beneath your shoulders towards the front of your mat, lengthening one leg back and then the other. Trying to feel that you're in that long straight line of plank where your pelvis is neither dropping down to the floor nor poking up towards the ceiling. Have another breath or two there, and then as you exhale, you're going to send your pelvis up and back into dog pose. See how this long dog feels. It can feel quite nice. A breath or two there, and then stepping your feet in a little bit till you come into a dog pose that just feels you can settle into it. And if you stepped in too far like me, you can always step back again. And then from this dog pose, on an exhalation, you're going to step 1 foot forwards in lunge. Now you can always come through hands and knees if you prefer. So coming forwards into your lunge and a few breaths in lunge. Now you've got a couple of options in lunge. So some of you I know quite like to do the one where you're rocking forwards and back. So if you're going to do that, you can untuck your back toe, and then you can do this sort of toing and throwing where you rock back a little bit, and then you come forwards a little bit. So as you go back, you're looking back towards your back legs. My chest is staying close to my thigh. As I come forwards, up on my fingertips. So that's one option in lunge. The other option, and I'll turn around so you can see it better, is the one where you walk your foot out to the side and your hands come more into the centre. And if you're feeling terribly energetic, you could let your back knee come off the ground, but that might be a bit too much.
Impossible.
Yes, might not be possible. And then from this lunge, let's step that front foot back into dog pose, or come through hands and knees on dog pose. Have a few breaths in dog pose, let the head go. And then as you exhale, step the other foot forwards into the lunge. How it feels on this side. So remember, you don't have to do any of these variations. You just might want to be in lunge, breathing, letting your pelvis settle. But if you like to ease out in and out of lunge, then by all means do this. Or again, if you like to put your hands on the floor, in between, you know, on the inside of your foot, that's a possibility. Okay. And then whenever you're ready to come out of your lunge, if you've taken your foot to the side, walk it back towards the centre, plant your hands down, exhale, step your foot back into dog pose. Have a few breaths in this dog, and then you're going to be folding down into child pose once more. In your own time. Folding down into child pose, let your forehead touch, or sit in kneeling. Just again, a sort of quiet place where you can let your hands and your wrists rest, and you can just let everything sort of settle within you onto the feeling of your breath moving somewhere in your body. Hold on, I just have to check. Well, there's a bit of stamping upstairs. What's going on? And I will be back. Mary, what is going on? Right, sorry about that. Just had to rescue Otto. So we're going to do a little sequence now. Yes, not Otto. Right, so we're going to do a little sequence now. Maybe just sit comfortably and watch me for a minute. Slowly, on hands and knees, rocking into dog pose. Then walking our hands in towards our feet. So you won't be doing this as quickly as me. You'll be taking a bit more time in every stage. From here, we're going to come down through a squat. I wouldn't use a block because it's fine to let your heels come up for these squats because we're going to be rolling forwards onto our knees and then walking our hands forwards. So we're in a long hands and knees, untucking the toes and just starting this rocking forwards to up dog, seeing how that feels. And then we'll add in a bit of rounding our back and rocking forwards like this, and then going back into child pose. Okay, so we're going to do this sort of little mini sequence 3 times. So come onto hands and knees. This is a normal hands and knees to start with. So under your shoulders, knees under your hips. Tucking your toes under. Exhaling, rocking your hips back over your heels. And then letting the knees pick up off the floor, coming all the way back into dog pose. Having a breath or 2 in dog pose. So this feeling that in the sequence, we give our body and our mind time to arrive in each posture. And then from dog, we're going to walk our hands in towards our feet. So we feel all of the weight come into the footprint. So at this point, yes, make sure all of your weight's in your feet are hip width apart and parallel. Let your head go. And then start to bend your knees forwards over your feet. So you're letting yourself drop down to a squat. If your heels come up, that's absolutely fine because we're going to roll through the balls of the feet onto the knees and then walk the hands forwards into this longer hands and knees position. And untuck your toes. And just start to see how does it feel if you're edging towards face up dog. Now you might feel really happy to go all the way into face up dog at this point, but you don't have to. It might just be that how does it start to feel to lean your weight into your hands. And then tuck your toes under, round your back to the ceiling, rock your hips back over your heels. And then travel forwards into face up dog with this rounded back. So looking at your pelvis, come forwards. Your shoulders end up over your wrists. You come face up dog as long as that feels comfortable. Let a breath come in wide in the front of your chest and then rock back into child pose. Just let yourself have a breath to do in child. Let the wrists rest, or in kneeling if you prefer. So just let your wrists rest and your hands rest. And then come back onto hands and knees again. So we're going to repeat that twice more. So again, this is a normal hands and knees position. Tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking your hips back. Knees pick up off the floor, coming into dog pose. Having a few breaths in dog pose. Let the head go. Bend the knees as much as you like. Rest through the arms. And then starting to walk your hands in towards your feet. Let your heels settle down on the floor. Let all of the weight be in your hands. Let your head go. Maybe a big breath. And then starting to bend your feet forwards over your feet, coming down through a squat. It's fine for the heels to come up. As with the hands on the floor, you're going to roll through the tops of your feet, back onto hands and knees. And then again, walking the hands forwards into this long hands and knees position, untucking the toes and just starting to see how does it feel if we're going to be shifting our weight forwards into our arms. And just don't go any further than feels comfortable for the lower back. And then tuck the toes under, round your back to the ceiling, look back towards your feet, rock your hips back over your heels. Let a breath come in here. And as you exhale, round your back, traveling forwards. Untucking the toes, letting the pelvis go. That's it. Let a breath come in. You're very wide in the front of the chest. And then back into child pose or kneeling if you prefer for a couple of breaths. And we'll do that sequence one more time. Now this time, at the end, we're going to, rather than go into child pose, we're going to go into another dog pose and walk and come up into standing from that dog. I'll talk you through at that point. So come back onto hands and knees. Tuck your toes under. Big handprints on the floor. Let a breath come in. Exhale, rock your hips back over your heels. Pick your knees up off the floor. Let your legs lengthen out into dog. You're doing a bit of bending one knee, bending the other knee. Bending both knees in dog. Resting through your arms. And then starting to walk your hands in towards your feet. Your heels settle down, letting all of the weight come into your footprints. Check here that your feet are parallel, hip-width apart, as we start to bend our knees forwards over our feet. Good. And then from here, rolling through the tops of the feet onto hands and knees, walking your hands forwards. Coming again, one last time into this long hands and knees position where we're rocking ourselves towards face up dog. I'm going to come look at you in a moment, so whenever you're ready, you can do the version where you tuck your toes under, rock your hips back over your heels, and then travel forwards with a rounded back. So I'm just going to come forwards and have a little look. Very nice, good, beautiful. And then this time we're going to go into dog pose rather than child pose. You could go through hands and knees, or you could go straight into dog pose. It's going to feel like quite a long dog, so you might want to walk your feet in a little bit. Have a few breaths in that dog pose. And then you're going to be walking your hands in towards your feet, into a forward bend. So come from your dog pose, coming into a forward bend, arriving in that forward bend with all your weight in your feet. And then from there, we're going to be rolling up into standing. So let a breath come in, and as you exhale, roll. Very nice to see you in standing. Do say if I don't know whether this light, if you can see this light behind me, if it's a bit dazzling, I can turn it off. I just don't know whether it's better. So this is it on, and this is the light off.
Oh no, on.
Dark. It's
On is
on,
better.
on.
Yeah.
A little bit noisy. I don't know, shall I unmute everyone? What do people think? Is it a bit noisy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to unmute everyone then.
Yeah.
If you need to, it's a bit weird with you muted. If you want to speak, just wave and I'll unmute you. So let's come into standing. And let's first of all in standing, just settle for a moment with one hand on the belly and one hand on the chest. And if you like, close your eyes. So just this feeling of coming inward a little bit. And how does standing feel? How does it feel to be upright? The hands on the front of our body can help us to connect with our breathing, but also just maybe help us feel a bit more settled and present in our body. So see if you can feel a cycle of breath come in, a cycle of breath leave you. And once more, feel the breath come in, feel the breath leave you. And then let your arms go. Open your eyes, come to here, loose, swinging twist. So we're carrying on with this focus of doing quite a lot of twisting movements in standing, with this focus of releasing tension through the rib cage, which again really helps facilitate easier breathing, but it also helps our movement be easier. Releasing tension from the ribs is also really good for the knees. It takes some of the pressure off the knees. So a couple more times. So just notice in this how the pelvis is moving to side, the feet are moving, because then I then would like us to do some twists where we're being much more fixed and we're leaving the pelvis facing forwards. So come to the center, bring your hands onto your pelvis and see how this is how it feels to have the pelvis facing forwards. Then bring your hands onto your bottom ribs and turn a little bit without moving the pelvis. That's it. So turn a little bit side to side. Good. And then try the same thing with your hands on your shoulders. So your pelvis is still facing forwards. You're turning with your hands on your shoulders. And then try the same thing with the hands on the crown of your head. And then let that all go and come back to this one where we're letting everything move. Very nice. And so this obviously feels a bit more natural, maybe feels a little bit more satisfying, but we're not getting quite that quality of movement in the rib cage because everything is moving. Okay, let that go. Settle down now, feet hip width apart and parallel. Bring your hands into prayer pose. So we're going to be doing a bit more swinging, but just of the arms now. So with the hands in prayer pose in front of you, let a breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Let the breath come in. And then as you exhale, swing your arms out to the sides, crossing in front of you. Very nice. So you can cross one arm in front of you and then the other. And then eventually from here, you're going to come and you're going to be giving yourself a hug like we did on your back. Have your right arm on top, because then you're not going to have to worry about which arm is on top. I can remember for you. So the right arm is on top. I would then like you to turn again, but not move the pelvis. So giving yourself a hug, can you turn your shoulders and your ribs to the right and to the left? Pause in the middle, come on into your eagle arms, on into this one. And then take your feet as wide as the narrow edge of the mat. So a bit wider apart with your feet. Let the breath come in as you exhale, folding down. Keep your weight in your heels. Let the weight of the arms help to lengthen your spine out. And whenever you want to, you can release your arms down to the ground and just let your arms be heavy and floppy. So uncross the arms, let them go. And then let a breath come in. As you exhale, sink down into your heels, rolling up into standing. Stay with your feet this wide apart because we're going to do these side lengthening movements here. So one arm comes up, the other arm is heavy and floppy. Arm comes up, the other arm's heavy and floppy. Good. Your pelvis can move in the direction of the raised arm. Good. So just a couple more times from side to side. So I'm not sure, we might be here all day if we're trying to balance ourselves out, but eventually letting that go. Bring the feet back to being hip width apart. Bring the hands back into prayer pose. So come back to the starting point and take maybe a cycle of breath to feel your feet on the floor. Feel the contact of your hands. Let a breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up, and then swing your arms, crossing in front of you. So just enjoying that feeling of really trying to let the arms hang from the shoulders. Fantastic. And then you're going to be giving yourself a hug with the left arm on top. Dropping the shoulders down. Good. And then again, the same thing. Try to turn, leaving your pelvis facing forwards. So it feels a bit unnatural, but we're trying to really isolate that movement into the ribs. So the ribs and the shoulders and the head turn from side to side. And then we pause, we come on in the center, we come on into our eagle arms. And then we step the feet as wider apart, as wide as the narrow edge of the mat, if you like. Sink into your heels, exhale, folding forwards. Some big exhalations here. Really have your weight in your heels, use that weight of your arms to help lengthen you out. Very nice. Whenever you want to uncross your arms, do so and just let them flop down to the floor. Lovely. Really nice. And then breathing in, exhaling, sinking into your heels, coming back up into standing. Come here, back into these side lengthening movements. I quite like to move from side to side in these. I just don't find them very easy to stay in and breathe. And they just, yeah, they tend to feel nicer moving in and out of them. Just finding that length, obviously letting the pelvis go this way. And then we're going to have a little shake out, and I'm just going to unmute everyone for a moment and see how we are. So, everyone okay?
Yes.
Okay. I might keep us unmuted for a little bit, but if it gets a bit rowdy again, I will mute up.
I'll mute myself because I've got my 2-year-old in the room with me now, so I'll mute myself.
That would probably be a good idea. Yes, if anyone knows they've got background noise, mute yourselves. What we're going to do, maybe if I just show, no, actually, I don't need to show you. What you're going to do is bring the feet back so they're as wide as the narrow edge of the mat. And you're going to come into a forward bend here. And then you're going to play around with bending one knee and bending the other knee. So in your forward bend, yeah, playing around with bending one knee, bending the other knee. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. So you could bend one knee and bend the other knee by swinging your pelvis to the right and to the left and enjoying that sort of, yes, it can be quite sort of free and easy here, swinging the pelvis from side to side. And then see, can you do a smaller movement but still bend each knee, and the pelvis just tilts a little bit to the right and to the left.
Oh.
Swing quite
You talking to me?
Very much enjoying all the dogs in the,
Yeah.
all the Bedlingtons and Bedlington Whippets in the background. Okay, just flop forwards in the centre for a couple of breaths, and then we'll go a little bit further with this in a moment. So make sure your weight's in your heels, let your head and your arms and your spine tumble forwards, and then sink into your heels and come back up. So we're going to have a little shake out of your legs, and we're going to take this same movement into a twist. So what you're going to be doing is fingertips on the floor. So I'm bending this knee, I'm turning away from the bent knee. Okay? And then I do this side, I'm bending this knee. My pelvis is tilting rather than swinging. I'm turning away from the bent knee. But there's still a lot of movement going on in the rib cage. If this arm comes up, you're trying to feel it's on top of that, really just immediately above your shoulder. So come back into your forward bend. I'll have a look at you. So back in your forward bend, feet as wide as the mat. Make sure your feet are parallel, folding forwards. And then when you bring your fingertips onto the floor, so one hand is going to stay on the floor. It could be the flat of your hand, it could be your knuckles, it could be your fingertips. It's light touch with the hand. And you're bending one knee, just letting your pelvis tilt rather than swing. And you're turning towards your straight leg. And maybe this arm comes up. And then you're turning the other way. So you're swapping feet over. I might just, I think we might have to mute people. No, we've quietened down a bit. Good. Yeah, so just do this maybe 2 or 3 times in each direction. That's very nice. And just check that when your knee is bending, it's bending straight forwards over your foot rather than into the centre out to the side. And make sure that your weight is in your heels, not... I'm going to mute everyone again. Good. Very nice. And then when you've done that, perhaps 2 or 3 times to each side, just flop forwards in the centre. Sink into your heels. Let both legs do the same. And then breathing in, exhaling, sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing. And have a little bit of a shake out. So we're going to do another twisting movement. This time, if you can see, I'm going to be taking my legs wider apart. Let me show you first of all, and I'm going to show you this way. So we're taking our feet wider apart. Feet are still parallel. We're going to be doing another rotation. You may find that you want some blocks on the floor, particularly if you want to have your hand flat. This time we're not bending one knee. You could bend both knees, but both legs are doing the same thing, and then we're turning. So it's a little bit harder. The turn is a little bit harder because we're not bending one knee. So it's just the ribs that are turning. And so on this side, I can't take my arm up. So yes, let's see how this feels. If you think you might need some blocks, grab a little pile of books. So bring your feet wider on your mats. And the same thing applies. You need to really keep your weight in your heels as you exhale and come forwards. And we're trying to turn with a straight spine. That's why you might want the books under your hands. So to bring your hands to the floor, your back is rounding. That's when you might want to come up a bit higher with your hands on some books to let your spine lengthen out and flatten. And then one hand comes onto the back of your pelvis. And you're turning, that's it, you're turning towards that arm. And just really just keep paying attention to what happens in your legs. If you feel that one knee is starting to bend, then that would suggest that your pelvis is moving, that's it. Can your weight stay well in your heels? Good. Very nice. Lovely. Good. And don't force anything in the shoulders. Good, lovely. Very nice. That's it. When you take your top arm up, your hand wants to face forwards. It might not want to face forwards, but that's what we're trying to do, is have the hand, the palm facing forward and that arm being immediately above your shoulder, trying to feel that. And again, when you've done this a few times to each side, you might just then want to fold forwards into a forward bend, have a few quiet breaths. You could hold your elbows, you could rest your hands on your ankles. Let your head go. You could have the backs of your hands on the floor with your fingers pointing away from you. And then you can sink into your heels and roll up into standing and have a little bit of a shake out. Now, I am going to unmute you and I'm going to come a bit closer. So we're going to do a mudra, a hand position, which we're going to use in a couple of balances. And we're also going to use this a bit later in some sitting and breathing. So you're bringing both hands together like this, and then you're keeping your thumbs long and your middle fingers long and folding the other fingers down. So can you see? I've got long thumbs, long fingers, and then the index fingers come to rest on this bony notch at the base of my throat. That's it, Donna, yeah. And then the thumbs come further down my breastbone and the heels of my hands are touching. So Alice, bring the heels of your hands together.
Yeah, that's really hard.
That's it. Is that hard to do that on your wrists?
Yeah. No, it's very hard.
Okay. Okay. Just, well, don't, if it's too much for the wrists, don't force it, of course.
It just moves my elbows more forwards.
Yes, exactly. If the elbows come more forward, that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
So this is the position. We're going to see how it feels to come into a little balance. So let's, yeah, and again, the same thing there, Sheila, if the heels of the hands can touch. So you could keep your hands in this position, maybe, so you don't have to redo it. We're going to do a very easy little balance to start with. So once you've settled in standing, then bring your hands onto your breastbone. So remember, the index fingers are on the bony notch at the base of the throat. Don't have them on the soft tissue because that's going to feel horrible. The thumbs are further down the breastbone. Try and let the shoulders settle as much as possible. Just everything settling. The hands are bringing our awareness to the breastbone, to maybe the movement of the breath there. And all I'd like you to do here is maybe start to sway a little bit from side to side. And in swaying, you're going to choose one foot to bring your weight onto. You're going to shift your weight onto that foot, come up onto the ball of the other foot. And then you could stay there, or if you feel steady, you can bring that foot to stand on the other foot. So just a very simple little foot position. If you feel wobbly, you can bring your toes back to the floor again. But see how it feels to have a few breaths. Can we let the shoulders settle, really soften? So the bones can keep our arms in this position. We can let the muscles undo around the bones. Maybe have that intention as well as balancing of really softening the muscles in the shoulders, in the arms. Good. Very nice. Come down. I'm going to ask you to release your hands and have a shake out. And you're going to try to then bring your hands back into that mudra. So I will come forwards just in case the brain, it's always so hard with these ones. So remember, it's the hands are like this, thumbs stay long, middle fingers stay long. We fold the other fingers around. We're going to bring the hands onto the breastbone like this. So we'll try the other side of the balance now. So settling down, shifting your weight into the other foot now. Come up onto the ball of the foot you just stood on. And then if you feel steady, you can bring your foot to stand on the other foot. see what you feel under your hands and your breastbone, maybe the rise and fall of your breastbone with your breathing. I'm going to mute everyone as I forgot to earlier. It doesn't help with the balance. Good. Okay. Another breath or two there, and then coming back down, releasing your hands, having a shake out. So we're going to do that same hand position again, but, well, you've got a couple of choices. What I'm suggesting is coming into, we're going to come into tree pose. Let's just do this little preparation first of all. So have your hands on your pelvis, come up onto the ball of one foot, and just do this rotation of the knee, of the leg in the hip joint. So you could be thinking at this point, would you do that on both sides? You could be thinking of this point, at this point, of what sort of tree pose you want to do. So if you're going to do, for example, a mini tree, you could have your hands in position and then come into tree. If, however, you want to do a tree where you're bringing your foot higher up on your thigh, you've got to come into tree and then bring your hands into position, okay? So I'm leaving that up to you. We're coming back to that same mudra. So remember, the middle fingers stay long, the thumbs stay long, the heels of the hands are touching. I'll just show you my hands. Coming into one side of tree pose and just seeing how it feels to settle in tree. Can we maybe feel some movement of the breath under the breastbone? Can we let the shoulders and the arms undo layers of muscle and tissue? So the bones will keep the arms there. And don't worry, of course, if you fall out, you can always come back into a different sort of tree, or it might be time anyway to come out and have a little bit of a shake out. So let's have a little bit of shake out, and we've got the side two to do. So again, if you know, you could be coming into a mini tree, bringing your hands into that position to start with, or if you want to come into tree with your leg higher up your thigh, you're using your hand to bring your foot up your thigh and then bringing your hands into the mudra. Dropping the shoulders. So make sure the heels of the hands are touching. Index finger at the bony notch at the base of your throat. Thumbs lower down on your breastbone. How does it feel to settle in standing? It's fine if you wobble and you come out, you just bring your foot somewhere back into tree pose, if that's still a possibility. Good. Settle your weight down through your heel. Come out, have a little bit of a shake out. I'm going to unmute you again. Again, if it gets really noisy, we'll mute you again, but I think the balance is we do need a little bit of quiet. We're going to come down now to the floor through, well, I say a forward bend and a squat, but some of you prefer to come into a squat this way, so it's really up to you. You could try both. So this time for your squat, do have your book or your block or rolling up your mat, or stay in the squat. So you could be going from your forward bend down into a squat, or you could be here, reaching your arms forward, staying more upright as you let your knees bend. And at this point, if your heels come up, we're going to slide something under them so we can stay in our squat, or not, Hilary, that's fine. If you're happy without something under your heels, that's absolutely fine. But we want this feeling here that our pelvis can be heavy, lengthening out the lower back. There is this possibility of taking the knees wider and folding forwards between the knees if that doesn't feel too much of a stretch on the lower back, which it may do if you've been doing all this I said, where's Hilary? All this gardening, as I'm sure lots of us have been doing because we can't do anything else. So a few breaths in our squat. And then we're going to be coming down. We're going to be doing some sort of familiar sort of hip movements for the hips, sitting positions. And then we're going to be coming to sit with some mudras, including the one that we just did. So from here, you're going to let yourself come to sit down in the corner and lean back onto your hands. See how it feels. So I'm going to keep the sound on for the moment, but if it gets very clunky, or if at your end it gets noisy, then maybe mute yourself. So seeing how cobbler pose feels, you could stay leaning back on your hands. You could come forward, catch your feet, your big toes, your ankles. You could do a little bit of rocking. So this is shifting your weight onto one sit bone. You could do a bit of circling. So this would be more shifting your weight. Your sit bones stay on the floor, but you're shifting your weight around. These are just all possibilities. And if you're circling, you might want to go in the other direction. Nice. Good. You could also do a little bit of leaning from one side to the other. So this is a bit of a side bend. You could even, if you wanted to, take your weight into one hand, take your arm up. So it comes into those side lengthening movements again. So all of these things, whatever you're doing here, just make sure it feels comfortable. And there's plenty more things you could do here. But what we're going to do is, surprise, surprise, come on into pinwheels. So let one knee come on top of the other knee. Let this top leg slide back and see how it feels to do a little bit of circling. So in a moment, we're going to fold down over this leg thigh that's going out to the side. And we're going to do a couple of buzzing breaths in that position just to help us settle. And yeah, quite nice on Zoom to have our buzzing breath. So turn towards your thigh that's going out to the side. Fold the weight of your body down over that leg. And rest down as low as feels comfortable. And then let a breath come in. And then again, breathing in. Very nice. And then walking your hands into and from pinwheel, we're going to come on into pigeon by sliding this knee back a little bit and lengthening out the back leg. And just remember that you can be a bit offside in your pigeon. So if this knee experiences pressure in pigeon, then you don't have to roll your pelvis all the way over. So if you are rolling your pelvis over, you could bring your hand onto the back of your pelvis to feel it's level. I will have a little look in a moment. But you don't have to be there. You could be more offside like this, if that's better for this knee. And then what I thought we would do in pigeon today is a little bit, some sort of mini cat movements. So you could be on your elbows, just a little mini movement of rounding your back. And not always dipping your spine, but sort of flattening out your spine. So see how those little mini cat movements feel. And you could also do them on your hands. A little bit flattening out your back, a little bit of rounding your back. So if you can bear to be a pigeon, I'm just going to have a little look at some of you. Very nice. So they're mini cat movements, but it just gives you a little bit of possibility for movement in pigeon, which maybe stops it all becoming too horrible. I know you all love pigeon, but it stops it becoming horrible. If we feel that we have got, you know, this freedom to move wherever it works better for us. And then from pigeon pose, it just gets better because we're going to come into cow legs and shift our weight back and swing this top leg around. Now, I know it's not some of you Friday lot, it's not everyone's preference coming to cow legs this way. So if you prefer to then come up here, fold back into your cow legs, you can. And what other options should I say? So if you come into cow legs and you think, oh my God, this is just not good for me today, and this sit bone is not down, you could be here. Yeah, so this foot comes back onto this side and you can hold around your leg. Or you can lengthen your bottom leg out. So that's another possibility. So this knee then is not under pressure. So wherever you are in cow legs, let's turn towards the top leg. Maybe have a little wiggle first. So we're trying to settle down. It's like a bird settling down in its nest. And then as you exhale, turn towards your top leg. See if you can work out which is the top leg. So it would be good. Have a few breaths there. And then coming back towards the centre, it's up to you. Love, I'm teaching. Just get it for you. So coming back to here, you've got a couple of options. If you like cow legs, you could be folding forwards. If you want to try your half lotus, it's quite a good place to try that. If you're just desperate to come out and lengthen your legs out, then do that. And I just have to, sorry, give the extension lead to Mary. There you go. Okay, good. So hopefully we're all at this point lengthening our legs out. If you want to, reach onto the second side, bring your legs long and wide, you can do, and see how that feels. And just rocking forwards and back or side to side. We'll perhaps have maybe slightly longer with our legs long and wide after side 2 of this sequence. I think we've got time for that. Okay, so lean back onto your hands, bring your feet back into cobbler pose. And just touch on cobbler pose, see how it feels now. Probably when, if you feel that you want to do any rocking or swaying, that's absolutely fine. If you feel that you wanted to fold forwards a little bit, you could do. But we're just maybe touching on it for a couple of breaths and then moving on into side 2 of the top leg comes over, top leg slides back. We're doing a little bit of circling here. Circling and settling, settling and circling. These movements which are so helpful for undoing tension in the hip joints, into the pelvis, into the lower back, which is why we do them so much. And then we're going to turn towards this thigh, this leg that's turning out to the side. We're going to fold down over it and do our couple of buzzing breaths. So folding down to a place that's comfortable for you. Nice if the elbows can come onto the floor, maybe the forehead, doesn't matter. You can always have a cushion there underneath you if you need it. Letting the breath come in. And again. Walking the hand up in towards you, we're going to move on to pigeon on this side. So it's a little bit of sliding this knee back and then lengthening that back level out. And then just what works for your front knee? Do you need to stay a little bit off to the side so your weight goes through the whole of the front leg thigh? Or are you happy to let your pelvis roll over so it's a bit more level? So work out what is best for you on the side. Really important you don't do anything that's going to damage your knee or bring pain. And then we can do our cat movements again. So we can be on our elbows and our forearms. A little bit of rounding, a little bit of flattening out. It's probably more flattening out than dipping through the spine, I think, in these. So maybe that feeling of the shoulder blades sliding down the back and in towards each other. Bringing round up, let the shoulder blades move away. And try the same thing.
Jesus.
And of course, there's other things you could do in pose if you like. The cat movements are just something that maybe buys you a little bit of time in which your pelvis can settle and you're keeping your shoulders as free from as possible. And then in a moment, we're going to be moving on into cow legs. So shifting your weight, rolling your weight onto that top of the front leg thigh, swinging your back leg around, seeing how this feels. Those of you, again, who like to come from here into your cow legs, you can shift forwards, you can sit back again. And if, like me, you're thinking, oh, okay, I'm on my harder side now, what can I do to feel a bit more comfortable? So there's that sort of wiggling and settling and really being honest with yourself. Is this sit bone on the ground? If it's up like this, you know, maybe sit on a block, a book or two, maybe come back to here. Or there's this option as well. This is quite, this is quite a good option too. Be somewhere where it is possible. And even if the sit bone is not as heavy as the bottom leg sit bone, it's still got that feeling that it's going down rather than lifting up. Hopefully. And then we'll turn towards the top leg. And have a few breaths here. In cow legs, it's really easy for us to leave our pelvis behind. In fact, it would be very hard for us to move our pelvis when we're turning. Turn towards the top leg. Have a few breaths there. Coming back to the centre when you're in. And you've got all these little options here. If your cow legs fan, you could be folding forwards in cow legs. If you quite like touching on your half lotus, you can slide that top leg out. If you just want your legs to be long, you can lengthen them. And then we will, as I promised, have a little bit longer sitting with our legs long and wide. And I'm going to go side on. So you've always got the option in this of having your back against the wall, or as I always say, a sofa or a bed if you're in your bedroom. So, it can be really nice to sit in this with some support behind your back. Or with, another option is with a block. A block or a book under your pelvis. Because one of the things that we're trying to avoid in this is this sort of, it is fine if you're leaning on your hands, but we're trying to avoid this sort of slumping backwards, really because it puts pressure on the lower back. So, you could have your hands back behind you. Some of you I know rather like this, and your pelvis can roll forwards, and you can bring your hands forwards quite comfortably. If you're doing this, just look at what your feet are doing, because we want the toes to keep facing the ceiling. It might be you do a little bit of, what are the options for your feet? They might want to roll forwards or back. But if you are coming forwards, we're trying to just leave the toes pointing up towards the ceiling. You can some of you are doing some nice side bendy things, you could do that. You can do some little rotations. I will show you some, if you're wondering what, when I say little side bendy things, what on earth am I talking about? It would be turning, so you're facing one long leg, and then you're folding the side of your body down the other leg. Oh, I find these ones rather strong. So you would turn so your body faces one leg, and then you're trying to line up your shoulder with the other leg and do this side bending movement down over your leg. So that's if you wish, that is a possibility. And yeah, have another few breaths. If you've had enough, then do walk your feet in. And we're going to be thinking about what would be a comfortable position to sit in, because we're going to come to sit now with a series of mudras called the Sharira mudras, which some of you might have done with me last week, I think Wednesday last, possibly you, Helen. I'm going to come nearer to the screen, and I want you to sit in a comfortable position. So possibly not with your legs long and wide, but you could, if you want to have your legs long and wide, you might want your back against the wall. Yeah, and something warm. So the Sharira mudras are the lobes of the lung mudras, and so they're about bringing our awareness to different parts of the rib cage and the lungs, and to facilitate the breathing there. And there's 4 of them. The 4th one in the series is the one we did in standing, so we will revisit that one, which you all know well by the time we get. So let's settle down, and just a bit of, maybe a little bit of circling or rocking or swaying. That's very nice. And I will, I think at this point, mute everyone because we're trying to be a little bit quieter. So the first position we bring our hands into is at the low ribs, and you're trying to have your hands flat like they're on a table. So not like this, but flat. So it's this edge of the index finger that's on the front ribs, and your thumb is going round towards the back of the ribs. Yeah. And rather than the elbows going back, if anything, the elbows come forward slightly, or certainly out to the sides. Yeah. And then we just see, how does it feel to settle here with the hands on these low ribs, and to bring our attention to our breathing in this part of our body. So you might like to close your eyes. And just settle with your breath. And giving your breath plenty of time and space. So as the breath comes in, giving it the time and space so it can travel all the way down to the bottom of your lungs and expand those low ribs. And as the breath leaves you, you empty completely, letting those ribs hug back around you. So it's this feeling perhaps of widening and narrowing around our middle, and this feeling of the breath travelling all the way down to the bottom of the lungs, particularly the bottom front of the lungs. And then release your hands, let them come to rest on your thighs for a moment, just palms up or palms down. Let your shoulders drop. And then the second position is quite similar, but we're bringing our hands up here. So the hands are flat again. You've got your thumbs in your armpits, which might feel a little bit strange. And then that edge again of your index finger on the front of your chest, and your elbows going out to the side. And then it's, how does it feel to sit and have a few breaths here and feel the widening and narrowing of your rib cage with your breath? in this upper part of your lungs and chest. So again, you might close your eyes so you can really focus in on your breathing. And noticing what you feel. As the breath comes in, what do you feel? As the breath leaves you, what do you feel? Let your shoulders stay as soft as possible. We won't stay here too long because the arms can get a bit tired. So when in your own time, let your arms come down to rest. Just let the hands rest on your thighs. Let your shoulders drop. If you need to sway a little bit, shift your weight, change your sitting position, you can do. The third Sharira mudra, we bring our arms up over our head. We touch our palms together. This one can be a little bit challenging too. And we bring our hands here. If I show you, your hands come here onto the upper back, sort of the top back of the shoulders, either side of the base of the neck. And we see how it feels to have a few breaths here. And what do you notice? So this is quite a challenging place to bring our hands. Can we feel any movement of our ribs, of our upper back under our hands? We might notice, we might feel our ribs in the front of our body, our low ribs in the front of the body widening more because of this arm position. So let's just maybe have 3 cycles of breath here. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. And then releasing your hands. Maybe this time just fold forwards for a moment and let your head hang before we do the last one. Just give your shoulders a little bit of a wiggle. Very nice. Nice head hanging and shoulder wiggling. So can we remember this last one? So remember where we bring the hands together, we keep the thumb and the middle fingers long, we fold the other fingers down. And then we have the index finger on that bony notch at the base of the throat. The thumbs are further down the breastbone. Heels of the hands touching if we can. Good. And what's it like to settle here? So we're not worrying about balancing now. We're focusing very much on what we feel under the hands in the breastbone, in this upper part of the chest. So closing your eyes. Letting your breath flow in and out through your nostrils, if that's possible. Just giving your breath plenty of time and space. So there's all the time in the world for the breath to come in and fill you. And there's all the time in the world for the out breath to leave you, slow and long. So the inhalation comes in slowly, it travels deep within you, expanding within you, filling you. And the out breath leaves you slowly, long, quietly. Maybe just another couple of cycles of breath here. And then undoing your hands. Let your hands come to rest on your thighs, palms up or palms down. Let's just have a few quiet breaths in sitting. At this point, just make sure your head is balanced on top of your spine. If you're sitting against the wall, that means not leaning your head back against the wall. Good. And just if you close your eyes now, where do you feel your breath in your body? What movement do you feel in your ribs? How do you experience that filling up that comes with the in-breath? How do you experience that emptying that comes with the exhalation? Filling and emptying. And then it's up to you. I'd say you're very welcome to stay sitting, but it might really be nice to lie down, because probably like lots of you, finding I'm at home a lot, I seem to not be resting half as much as I should be. And it's all much more tiring than I imagined. So yes, so blankets, cushions if you like, settling yourselves down, making yourselves warm and comfy. I'm going to keep you muted until at the end of this little lying down period. So it's nice and peaceful, or as peaceful as it can be being at home. Especially yes, Rosie, for you with the toddler. So settling onto your backs. And it's up to you. It might be quite nice to bring your hands onto the front of your body, maybe onto your low front ribs, to connect with your breathing to start with. That's entirely up to you. We're going to start by gathering our awareness into our breath. So if your hands are on the front of your body, then you can feel the rise and fall of your breath. Beneath your hand, or if some of you I can see have got dogs nearby, you might be feeling the rise and fall of the dog's breath. So it's very nice. So there's this lovely two-way sensing process that goes on when we rest our hands on the front of our body or anywhere on our body. So the hands feel the movement of the body as the body responds to the breathing. But the body also feels the warmth and the weight of the hands. And there can be something very calming and reassuring about that steady weight of the hands resting on the front of yourself. And as we lie there and we continue to let the breath come in and let the breath leave us, the sensation of the hands on the belly and the belly under the hands starts to merge. So it becomes more and more difficult to distinguish what is the hands and what is the belly or the low ribs. But we just keep feeling this wave, perhaps, of the breath moving through us somewhere at our center. The body responding to the ebb and flow of the in and the out breath. And from your breathing, of course, you can let your awareness expand outward to the feeling of the ground beneath your body, to the feeling of the air around you, sounds, sensations, thoughts, emotions, allowing everything that is to be present. And in a moment, I'm going to ring the singing bowl 3 times. So just let that sound come to you as part of the environment, your awareness of the whole environment as it is right now, your inner and outer worlds. So take your time. I'm going to unmute us again. Everyone. I'm just thinking how it's so lovely to see everyone. It's so lovely for me to see everyone in these strange times and have this feeling of continuity. Tracy, is that one of your lovely dogs down beside you? Which one is that?
Sorry?
Which one of your dogs is that, Tracy?
This is Dude.
Oh, so sweet. It's a pleasure saying, oh, so cute.
He's a bit clingy. He's a bit clingy at the moment.
Oh. Yes, I mean, I think this is the thing, isn't it? The dogs are getting so used to having us around all the time that
yes, it'll be a shock for them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend, all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really
Thank
lovely.
you, Kara.
Thank you.
those shorts are on the outside door. Alex wants to pick
Thank
them up.
you. We'll try and get there today. I'm sorry.
But don't worry, better though, lovely.
Yes, I don't know whether it was this.
Thanks, Kara.
Thank you. See you Monday. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
That was lovely.
Love to see you all.
Did you get to speak?
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Oh, bye, Alison. Bye, Hilary.
Bye.
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 Bye. And Kara, is your friend gonna give me a call when she wants the crate for the puppy?
I'm just going to say she's just actually messaged on us. So if you hold on, I'll see what she's had to say.
Okay. Find my glasses and binders about.
Yeah. Message Debbie. She's just messaged Debbie. I don't know whether she's confused you with Donna with Debbie. She says she's messaged Debbie, but she might have messaged you. So.
Okay, I'll have a look on my phone, and yeah, it's in the garage. She can come and get it any time. Obviously, there's always someone in.
At the end of the month, so it's not
Right. Okay. Perfect. Oh, another little brother or sister of Wilf's in the neighbourhood. Really lovely. Well, who knows? Maybe see you up on the fort. It'd be nice. You never know. If we see you, we'll be up there every day.
Socially distanced, won't we? Sort of.
Yes. Yeah. Oh well. Take care, Kara. See you soon. Thank you. Bye.